And recording.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for agreeing to be a part of community engagement again this year. I think I recognize all the faces. Victoria, were you with us last year?
I was for a few meetings,
sessions.
yeah, 2 or 3 meetings
Okay.
before we went
All
out
right,
for the
but
summer.
most everybody else has been here now for a couple while, yeah.
Couple more.
Couple while, not a couple years, a couple whiles at least.
That's okay. That's
All
good.
right. So first thing we have is looking at the minutes from last time. And I actually don't even have those.
I think they were emailed to us too.
They're on the email. Thanks.
I sent them out separately. because I forgot.
Thanks. Any questions about this? I don't know about you guys, but it'd be helpful for me to remember. It's been a little while since we did this. So last year, our focus was on the survey that we did, social emotional learning survey, and going through that. And we kind of called that, brought that to a close and finished that out at the end of last year. And so that's old business at this point, and that's not something we're continuing with this year.
I think the survey was
Right.
kind of, my thought was then how we inform our community of resources, both within the school district and then maybe those outside of our school district.
Cool. Sounds like a good plan for this year.
Yeah.
So the survey and closing that out and finishing that up, that's done. And now this time we have an opportunity to take some action on it.
Sure.
We also last year talked about remind me. There's a section here about this, the discussion items about study hall, after school club. I'm not remembering this. Has it been that long?
I think we just talked about it as the end, as a part of maybe some of the things that came out of the social emotional learning.
Okay,
Because we were talking about student ambassadors and stuff, and I think that's where the study halls and all that.
I reached out, at the beginning of this year, I started like reaching out to like Mr. Shaner, and then I reached out to the athletic director. Just about like seeing if that could become like a study hall thing where it would need to be after school. And they said that would probably need to be an after school thing, but then I kind of just put a pause to it because I figured we'd all meet up and then be able to kind of assemble something then.
And one other thing, Grace, I sent out a thing to, I think whoever you sent that email to, I was included on that. And I said, one of the other things you could do, because I know that study hall times are very important for some of those kids. Some don't have them after school, trying to get you guys after school, depending on what season it is and what activity or sport. So the other thing we could look at is depending on if you had common lunch hours, or we could be flexible. I said, they could meet, you guys could meet in our conference room at the high school and do like a working lunch where you bring your lunch in, or maybe they even serve you lunch that time. But so that's another thought process for kids, because trying to get you guys before, after, or sometimes even during, it's going to be difficult. So lunch is another idea.
Yeah, sure.
that was kind of what we closed the year out with last year, and we're gonna be interested in going through some of those this year. So any else before we move on past the minutes of last time?
Motion to approve the minutes as written. Do you need a motion to accept them?
Yes.
Yes.
We do
I
motion,
second.
we're okay, let's do minutes.
Too late now.
Right now, all right, we're moving, pun intended.
Second, so we have a
so-
motion. Do we have a second?
All right,
To say all in favor.
Aye. Opposed, same sign? Okay.
very good. Okay, citizens agenda, do we have anybody asking about speaking up in citizens agenda? Any random topics to?
I didn't have any emails or anything.
Moving on. So this year, thinking about what we're going to be doing, it might be helpful again to have a refresher on the results of the survey to get started, but Grace, I like that, the student ambassadors, and frankly, it's super exciting that you took the initiative to step into that a little bit and ask around, and it sounds like a great food maker sort of thing to do. Other things, though, that we can, this first meeting of the year is something where we can set our goals for what we want to accomplish by the end of this short session of only every other month. But what we want to accomplish based on this data that we collected last year.
Can I share something?
For me, I'd like to open that up to anybody, ask what they'd like for the goals.
I had our counselors and our social workers send to me a spreadsheet of local SEL resources. So in our community. Everything from Mississippi centers to the Regional Office of Education, Florissa, private and public counseling centers. And they provided the name, the services they offer, contact information, and if they knew cost, and I don't believe anyone had cost associated, what do they do? So they sent me that at the beginning of the year. I saved that into our CEC folder, or mine, just because I thought that's kind of one of those things we were talking about. How do we get this information out? And then the other thing is we haven't really kind of taken the time to start listing like kind of all of the internal resources that we have from a social skills curriculum that we have approved to all of our counselors and social workers throughout the district. The fact that we have Mississippi coming in. So, I mean, we have kind of those I think we could pull together and probably publish for families in pretty short order.
Cool.
Margo, what does Mississippi coming in mean? What do they offer? How much time? What is that?
Right, so Mississippi, their goal was to provide another level of support to our kids. A lot of them, it's kids that they already see, and so they're able to provide their services on site and they bill for them. It's a zero cost to the district because they're able to bill for them. Because they were already seeing them. Sometimes they find new patients when kids are in crisis. It is another level, kind of a tier 2 or a tier 3 support that we can provide. Hey, parents, we have this on site. Is this something you'd like your child, to be? We can try to get services connected. They don't do in-depth therapy sessions because we can't do that and then say to kids, go back to class.
Yeah.
But they can perhaps provide supports, provide them for tools to use either at school or at home. And, provide that counseling that a lot of times when they go home, parents say, I can't get them all the way out to Mississippi. So they don't get any, and instead they can get it throughout the school day. This year it was added to the high school. So all 5 of our buildings have Mississippi at some point during the week. John, is it one day right now for you guys?
It might be 2.
1 or 2?
Yeah.
So,
We have it 3 days a week at Madison. We were sharing with Reagan, but now we have our own. So we have it 3 days a week and I'm not sure about
And so someone is there all day,
all day, yeah, those 3 days that she's there. And it's usually during they go during their intervention time. We call it WIN, whatever I need. So they usually go during that time.
And it's set up through your parents, so
Oh,
billed through insurance.
yes,
yeah, that end of it, I don't know, but yeah.
we're
parents have to
kind of
sign for it.
we're kind of the host site, so they can get their counseling that maybe their parents wouldn't be able to take them to, but the parents work all of that out with Mississippi. So, and like I said, and then when they see kids that we may have that are in crisis,
That's what I was wondering if they
we
could
can
make.
they can then make the contact with the parents. We've had some kids in crisis and they've called me and I've said, have you ever thought about, we have Mississippi on site, and they're like, didn't know that, so then I connect them with the counselor who gets them connected with
Like,
Mississippi.
I had a student that saw the Mississippi counselor, and he had his regular time. I think he went during some PE time, because he had some other things going on during his intervention time. But there were days when he was just gonna explode, and he was like, I need to see Grace. I need to go see Grace. And so he would go and see his Mississippi counselor. She would work him in, if it was something like that. So, yeah.
Is it like an hour session or a half an hour? There's like a
Our
session.
intervention times are, what are they, 40, I think 40 minutes?
Okay,
Yeah.
so they were.
What if there's more than one kid at that time that needs it? How does
Right.
the,
Well, I don't know, well, it has to be parent, the parents have to, approve it, and,
so she has them scheduled, so that.
oh, yeah,
Okay,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they
And-
actually.
and so it's not like
schedule
a free-for-all where
Oh,
Yeah.
no,
Five kids. I need to go see,
Right.
yeah.
No, that student was already her patient, well, I don't know, you call it. Client. Yeah, so he was already a client, but, another thing she had shared once is that we had a student we wanted to go see, but the parent wouldn't get involved. And so that was part of it as well. And if the parent's not gonna do any follow through, which stinks, but
It's out of your hands.
yeah, at that point, yes.
I have a perspective. When my grandchild was in first grade, we found out that they were being sexually abused. So, and there was a lot of behaviors at school. There was issues that were going on that we had no idea why this happened. One of the things that happened is that like they had to go to Shining Star, they had to go to the doctor, they had to go through all these things. And there was no support in school. So I guess you would call that a crisis, but what happened was there was a lot of meltdowns and it became a behavioral problem on top of an emotional problem. So I guess my concern is the mother was not at all, she didn't believe what happened, was not supportive of the issue, was not involved at all. So it would have helped if there was support at school to offer even a little bit of stability during, it might have changed the outcome. So that's why all of this is very important to me, because I think there are more kids than that are facing those.
Is there anything that you can do to help those kids if the parents won't sign on? Is there anything that they can do, or they can do anything unless the parents give the
Well,
okay?
first of
correct?
all, the parents have to sign to agree to
Yeah,
let them go. But yet, from what I'm understanding from Grace, because I mean, obviously I can't sit in on. the
right.
session, But what she's told me is we had a student that we wanted, and she says, I keep reaching out to the parent, they don't return my calls, they don't want to follow through. So as far as that goes, I don't, that would be more of a,
I was just
I
curious.
don't know. Cause she doesn't like to give too we don't give
No,
a
she
lot of
can't.
details
I
at all.
would guess
I
that
mean,
HIPAA or something probably.
yeah,
comes
other
into play
than
with
just to
that.
say, I can't take that student because I don't have them.
Yeah,
There are other kinds of services that could have been interesting in a situation like that.
One of the nice things that happened is I got in contact with Pam Moss, and she was very supportive. So the social workers that were in the building were helpful
Right.
to both of us. But, they have such limited time to help.
Right.
And then the YWCA was really good, and I know they go into school quite a bit.
I think that's a good one to add to our list of internal resources, is the social worker. I often forget that exists, and those are in every building, is that right?
Right. Counselors or social workers.
Okay.
And our social workers, John, meet individually with students as well as small group. Like friendship groups, kids who just have a hard time making and maintaining friends, kids who need just basic back and forth social skills. Kids, grief and loss, it could be a death, a divorce, that kind of thing. Anger, you know, just like outbursts. And it just depends on the need and the makeup of kids during their free times and when they're, you know, intervention times and things are. But the one in our building meets with kids both individually and in small group, depending on the situation of the child.
And does that require parent approval or something of that, or that's just part of the?
I don't.
They can only meet, I believe it's 3 or 4 times without parental approval, and then they have to have it if they're gonna be one-on-one or a small group.
I have a question about the Mississippi in schools. Is that something that can be initiated by just a staff member? Does it have to be initiated by parents? I had no idea that Mississippi was in our schools. So I mean, as a parent, even if, you know, he's not going through a hard time or anything, I would love to know that that is an option available. So I didn't know if it has to be like
either. I mean, a lot of it, I know some of them had already been on their caseloads. Other parts had been recommendations, you know, of kids having some issues, but
If a student is struggling, typically we as a staff would have what we call a problem solving meeting. And so we would invite the social workers, and I know that Grace has sat in, well, I keep saying her, I don't know, I guess I can say her name, but Grace, our Mississippi person sits in on the meetings, and then from there we can give referrals and she can pick that up,
But is it something like if a parent has a concern about their child and they know that Mississippi is available at the school, is it something that they can initiate?
yes,
Okay, I think that might be
something to put out there.
beneficial for people to know. I mean,
Mhm.
because I work, you know, part-time and I have a hard time getting him to all of his appointments. You know, if there's something, parents who work full-time, if they've got an option for their kids to have that care during the day when they're already at school, I think that would be really beneficial to a lot of people to know.
Okay,
I think.
I think this first phase here is going to be in gathering the list, and we talked even last year about the list of potential resources, and I think we started. I feel like there's another document out there in the SharePoint site or whatever that has these things. I think that the first phase is going to be gathering these, presenting them in some kind of I want to use graphic design or some kind of formatting of this stuff into a way that's going to be communicatable. And then the communication of that, publicizing it in some kind of way. Maybe a way to structure this is themes of some kind, or how can we gather these things into gathering the resources together for this first phase?
Well, even if you sent out a Google Doc and we just all started adding to it, you know, what we know. To create our list. Obviously, it sounds like a lot of them, you've already said, Margot, that, you know, where I would go for some of these resources.
We started that process last year.
Yeah, I think so. We can
And once that's.
I could send out a link with what we have gathered so
Yeah.
far, like both the internal resources from our social workers and counselors, as well as the document that I could get that out to everybody.
I think it's really important. The first question I would want to know is, will my insurance cover this? Is this a free option? If my insurance doesn't cover this, that's a big deal. for me.
That might be a question though, with insurance, I mean, everybody's insurance is different.
Exactly,
You might not know until you call and talk to somebody because.
Right, but maybe you could categorize the resources that way. No, I know at Clarissa, people end up paying, you know, that's always, as a school, you hate to say, well, you know, we have Clarissa. We always kind of follow up with, now, I'm not sure what insurance does with that. There may be a cost for you in it, and, you know, it's kind of.
Like if you,
It's pricey.
It's through KSB, and it's all these services that we're talking about, counselors and.
with Clarissa though, like if I were able to, would I be able to call, okay, I wanna get my son in for counseling, would they, and I'm not gonna use insurance or whatever, could they give me a price? Because for past medical things with my kids, I have tried to call places, most of them can't give me a price. It will take sometimes up to 4 or 5 days before they give me a price. I found one place that could for an MRI that we needed, but,
Right.
so I mean, a lot of them, you're gonna have to call and probably gonna have to wait is my guess.
I think it's like that with Clarissa, cause I had a
6 to
student.
8 months, 6 to 8 months right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Even wait to get in.
Yeah,
To be safe.
well, and I think
Yes.
they have to do like an evaluation. I have a
Yes,
couple of
yes.
students at preschool who have gone through.
and that might be a better thing to put on there is to find out, to list which ones have a wait, because that's what I'm hearing around, like, yes, we have all these services, but the wait to get in is
insane.
horrible.
Don't sit on it.
And if we're doing our job, we're gonna be making those wait times even longer.
Yeah, and so all those things I think would be good to have included on the site.
But you're right, starting the process, right? Because if it's going to be 6 months, you might as well.
Yeah. Is there anything, is that like, you know, somebody wanted to get their kid into Forest and it's a 6 to 8 month waiting list, is there anything then that the schools could do to help that? For probably not.
No.
And that's my guess, that was my thought.
Unfortunately not. I wonder if we want to maybe have a like little subcommittee,
Mhm.
those that work on internal things, which might be employees. And those that might want to work on external things, from resources that everybody else knows. And like I said, I've got a list of, I think we've got a list of things started. I
Yeah.
can share as an internal resource and an external resource.
Margaret, was we ever have a committee where people would actually, maybe have places that they call, for instance, would call Clarissa and I'd say, I'm Jean Spawn, and I'm on this, community engagement committee. And, we are focusing on the social and emotional, the mental health. And so we want to be able to give people you as a resource. Now I need you to help me.
Yeah.
Do you use insurance? Do you, and then ask all those questions and then come back to you with all that.
Mhm.
Then you can plug it in.
We had one of the Clarissa people in our building for 3 years.
Mhm.
And we're done with that now.
Mhm.
But this year, we had students show up that were like, ooh, bells and whistles are flying. And so I called my, person at Clarissa. I'd be happy to. Yes. You want me to call our person? Would that be
Sure.
okay? Or do we want to let that for somebody who's
Well, and I
extra?
was just gonna say, we probably want to get down what are the types of things we want to ask. So
So
whether
it's-
you
okay.
force a uniform,
Yeah.
Okay.
whether you're
Okay.
talking to Clarissa or
Oh, that's. good.
Moeller and
Yeah.
Myers or
All right.
Path to Healing, whatever we're doing.
Are there, that's Dixon, where, like Sterling, Rock Falls, do we know that's Sterling?
We have like Moeller and Myers
Mhm.
is one on the resources. The list that the social workers and counselors provided at the beginning of the year. Just look here, has, well, they don't have where they're located, so that
Oh.
might be one of those things that we want on there.
Okay.
Mississippi, like I said, is in Dixon here.
'Cause that's
Clarissa,
important for families too, because Sterling, Rock Falls, some places would be doable for families, but then you get Rockford and.
Right through KSB, besides Clarissa, do we have a psychiatrist and?
KSB.
I'm KSB.
Don't.
So, yes, we have a child psychiatrist, we have, psychologists that will see children as well. And there's some private practice resources in the community also. But KSB does offer that. Clarissa is not technically KSB, they're
Right.
through private,
Right,
but
for a while.
they're just housed with us at this point.
So, I think that we should be, and people should know, we have a hospital with, because maybe you do need the psychiatrist and, to go that route. So that should probably be a resource.
That I can't even say is definitely in the spreadsheet, we included some marketing information.
And what speaks again to the idea that we don't treat mental health the same way that we treat physical ailments, that we don't think about calling KSB if we had a broken arm, but.
And I know that, obviously, if it's a trauma or an emergency situation, go through the ER.
Right.
And then they will direct you appropriately.
Okay, so as we're gathering this list of the different places, and then the spreadsheet's gonna have columns for each of these pieces of information, like what can we expect for costs, just in general, like is insurance or not?
Sliding
What-
scale.
Waiting.
Yeah, so wait time, is there a wait time? Do you typically have that? What sorts of services do you provide? Will be another column there. What other things?
I would add, do you need a referral from
Beautiful.
another
Good one.
professional?
Some people are kind of geared toward children and others, not so much. I know some of those, private ones that you were mentioning, wings or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, those really do work with children. So that's kind of a important thing too.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're talking about right here today, are children.
I just missed one. Cost, sliding scale, insurance or not, wait list, referral.
Services offered.
Services offered, that was it.
Also on here, they have, I put location or S, if they have multiple, locations, like Dixon, Sterling, or Falls. And then contact information.
You should also put if there is a 24-hour number that someone could call, like if it were in a crisis mode.
I think it would be nice to know if they offer like virtual services.
Yeah.
I prefer virtual services myself, so, yeah.
And if they have a website and contact information.
Well, that might make people
More likely to do it, yeah.
How will that help?
Yep.
So, and I'm noticing that my instinct is going towards these like mental health proper, so that like psychiatry, psychologists. Are there things that are around that and other, like, that are not directly in the not
You mean like
directly,
things like occupational therapy or?
yeah, things like that, and I don't know where the borders are of what we're trying to talk about, but
Are you talking about possibly like you're looking at your Sauk Valley Voices of Recovery? Where you're talking about dependent usage or things like that, dependency?
or like health and fitness or.
that, well, that's one question, is like, what are we talking about? Are we talking, I think the overarching thing is like social emotional health is
Right, but what Mary's saying is a good point, because sometimes with the social emotional, to heal that, people do their own treatments, with.
Home treatment.
So maybe we do need to talk about addiction with that.
It's a major contributor towards social emotional health.
One of the things that our counselors and social workers put on here was we have Pegasus special writers, therapeutic horseback riding.
Wow.
Where are they? I've heard of them.
Or
Are they
they
right?
Oregon or Mount Morris.
I missed one of them. I have name of the organization, services offered, location or locations, contact information, which would include like who, a 24-hour number, a website, telehealth, cost, do they take insurance, sliding scale, etc. Wait time, if a referral is needed. I wrote a W down. I didn't get the W.
I got a W for website.
Yeah.
Yeah,
got
website, I put that
Were
under,
both childcare focused?
Wait time, did you say that?
I got wait time, I got virtual services.
I think you.
Have I got it all?
I think you
Did I
got it
just
all.
maybe move website up there when I started to write it down there? Okay. And I can certainly add these columns to the existing spreadsheet so then people can fill in. There's one in here called sand tray therapy,
Say it again.
sand tray therapy, SAND,
Like grading.
new word. I wonder, are those little things with the little brushes and,
Playing the sand.
I don't know.
That's great.
Those actually work really well for kids. They do, they call them
And
down.
and
really
adults.
fast. They do, they're nice, yeah.
Is that
I
art
love it.
therapy one listed, Margo? Stacy Barber, is she on
Yep,
Roots and wings. So,
Oh, is that what it's called?
I think, yeah.
roots and wings therapy,
Okay.
yes.
I couldn't think of the name of her. Okay.
So there is gonna be some legwork here in filling in all of these details for all of these. I'm seeing the grid forming in my mind here of all the different locations and all the pieces of information. Is anyone willing to help fill in the blanks or call some of these places and find things out? And I don't know how to divvy up the work though.
Do we want to work on an internal and an external? Because like I said, staff members can put their heads together, or you can be on the external.
Good.
Are you thinking, John, like someone chair that subcommittee so they know who they're reporting to and can kind of divide tasks up, or?
Yeah, the most important thing I think is that there's people to help with each one of them, and then people who know who's doing what. But maybe a chair for each one of those, kind of, or an organizational person to help organize that. All right, so on the internal side, volunteers, internal folk,
I can be intern.
say again?
I can be
All
intern.
right, cool.
John.
Anybody else?
I can work with Amy,
All right,
Sarah.
I'm also willing to work with that.
You can put me on there too, today.
cool, thanks. All right, and external,
I can help with that.
all right,
I will as well.
thanks.
Yeah.
Brian, great. Pointing at camera, raising.
No, I'm raising my
All right,
hand.
all right.
I wouldn't volunteer somebody else.
I-
I don't even know him, so I would feel terrible.
You look.
Donna,
Now you said that. Great.
yeah, Victoria, Donna, Gretchen, Ryan,
All
Jean,
right, you got it.
internal, Amy, Sarah, John, Margot.
You got it all down. Great. So external.
And I'll work at getting the web things set up and transferred in, what we know is already internal and external. And that way, if there's some follow-up information that's missing, we can then, somebody can say, I'll call them and ask about it.
You know, and I know this is on the peripheral, and this could be down the road, but potentially there could be an opportunity for us to collaborate with lots to see, is there an opportunity to figure out transportation
Yeah.
to these places? Because that can be a hindrance for some of these folks. So if we can help solve that problem, I'd be more than happy to chair that, if that's once we get to that point.
Great.
Right.
Great, so you'll create a couple spreadsheets, one for
Yep.
internal, one for external.
Got a lot of it already here, just kind of got to do some copy and pasting, adding a couple more of these columns in.
Great.
So probably in the next day or so, I can send everybody the link. So it's a collaborative document.
You should be able to just click on the link and sign in and start entering things and adding things. Those was internal, we've got. That was an external, figure it out too, I'm sure. All right. We're doing on time, 4:07, pretty good.
External, we might wanna make a mark saying I'm contacting so that we don't like, they use it.
That's a way to get information.
Do you want me to just create maybe a column,
Yes.
beginning or end of who?
Mhm. That's our notification.
The other part of this whole thing that I remember talking about that to me will be more of a challenge or more long-term is I remember us talking about ways to make discussions about mental health, about social emotional health more accepted, more, you know the word, you know what I'm saying? And we talked about things that, different kids high schoolers, talking to other high schoolers was, a possibility, and so I see this part as being more of a long-term discussion of what else, now having the resources, because having people talk about mental health, but then not having any place to refer them. So I think this has to be the first step, so if you can kind of think about ways to, what else are we going, we talked about, didn't we, someone help me now, we talked about information blurbs or something that we would push out in social media. Did we
That's where we
have
talked
that?
about kind of our student ambassadors, maybe, would they want to provide some sort of informational piece, whether it anything from like a little skit on things to just talking about what resources are available and how to contact them.
Yeah.
That could be as simple as a little thing in the announcements.
Mhm.
This week's highlighted blah, blah, blah is this, and here's how you contact them.
Yeah.
Or an Instagram post. That's what I remember we were talking about.
Do you think you'll have an opportunity, Grace, maybe between now and our November meeting to see if there's an interest and an availability of students on your part? And
Yeah, no, I can definitely just, like put something out about it. I don't know what would be the best way to do that, but I mean, I'm sure we can probably put something out in the announcements or something like that, or send it to their email or something like
We
that.
can do a girl share.
okay,
To just find other students who might be interested
Yeah.
in. working with that.
and then do we know, did Mr. Shaner or you guys, is there another student ambassador we can get just in case? I know when it becomes GI time and that,
Oh, I'm so busy right now.
you're
yeah.
super busy. Is there another one we can look at maybe getting, so we have to?
I had started at the beginning, like I had talked to one of my friends who is a freshman, like I was thinking, try to start with like a freshman study once I leave, but, she's also very busy right now, so I'm trying to find other people
Perfect.
right now, but if anyone has anyone that they know of that is a freshman who might be interested. I just don't know as many freshmen as I do as like the register me, so I'm trying to. Are you seeing? I'm a junior, isn't it?
Maybe, Mr. Fegan or his daughter, since
That's
she's
who I was
a,
talking about.
yeah.
But she's also in like cheer, which is right after school,
Yep.
so.
But maybe she'd know somebody too, or he might have someone on the thing that can help us.
Is this something that we can maybe extend to like junior high age? I feel like the earlier you talk about that, things like that, mental health, that kind of thing, and the more used to it they are and the more open they can be about it as they get older. I mean, I don't know if that's an appropriate age to do that. 7th or 8th
I
grade,
could check
maybe.
and see what they may even have something, I don't know, I'll have to ask Matt.
I feel like if we got something together and then eventually we can almost go to the schools and talk about it, like getting.
And you might need to start in high
younger
school and kind of get established before you incorporated the something.
They're gonna need those good role models and
Right.
leaders to help you out, guide them, but that's a good idea. Think we have a good plan going here.
Yeah, liking it.
And we can see then maybe how much we can get figured out before our November 14th meeting.
Yep. So the next phase will be in that communication phase. And how do we package and communicate this information? And I don't even feel ready to think about that, but that's just the back of the brain churning on what might that look like. You know, the usual suspects of website and drill share and leaflets going home and things like that, but think outside the box and see what other ways we can build awareness. If you're talking about around these topics and make this a normal conversation, normalize, maybe that was the word. Normalize these topics so that.
You know how Sauk Valley Media puts out a magazine and it's like, sometimes it's what's happening in Dixon area, this business, that bar, this, or it's on weddings, they have like so many. What if we talk to them about creating one designed towards, mental health and all our resources, and we'll provide that for you. We've done this work, now we'd like you to
Do your part.
that might be, because you just get those, they come in my mailbox, right?
Yeah, we gotta have a cost, there's gonna be a cost for printing and, sorry.
Well, I think.
I used to be a graphic designer, so.
Yes, right, and I'm sure there is, but I wonder if they look for ideas, and this could be, and.
And that might
maybe
be,
just,
that
you
could
know,
be,
maybe
yeah, as I
just-
say, cause that, the only thing would be like your
Right,
layout, your
Right,
printing, your.
right, exactly.
I would suppose that these providers that would want to pay for that service. I mean,
Possibly.
that's a, I need to
Like an
say,
ad?
kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had a pamphlet that came out that listed all the, resources within the
Yes.
community that helped address mental health. If I was a provider in that, I'd want to be listed in there.
Well, that's a weird territory for us to get into, like,
Then we're going around asking for
We're
money, like.
advertising.
Not, but, we can give them the idea.
right,
I mean, look, just a
right, there's probably a way to do that.
Well, even if they did a blurb in the, just, the paper and then, you know what I mean, to
Right.
kind of open the door.
What I think, even if you don't get a paper, somehow you get that. Don't you? Yeah.
When is mental health month awareness? Isn't there a
We
month?
could probably know.
October.
that.
Yeah, maybe. That might be good. I don't know. Isn't there a month for that?
I think
Is
it's
it?
like suicide prevention or something.
Oh, is it only that?
May.
It's in May.
Oh,
Suicide prevention.
Is that October?
Is October.
Mhm. It is.
And I could be out of touch. My children are older now, but in talking to them, like Marley, a lot of her friends and even Ben's friends, it's become, I think it's really more our generation that is a little bit more stigmatized than the kids.
Yes.
They're just not, it's as normal, at least in the group that I've talked to, it's as normal as going to the chiropractor.
It's it's the same thing with my kids' this group.
It really is not, which I love that, but
I think the biggest obstacle will be parents.
I do too.
Grandparents.
That's our audience of who we're
Right.
helping to normalize this to.
But if you want to reach out to the older, like high school kids, I think that's where you do the social medias, or maybe we develop an app or something like that, that would reach the kids more so than any kind of publication.
One of my goals has always been to be able to go and talk in the schools about my experiences of mental health, surviving sexual abuse, surviving, generational sexual abuse, because regardless of what we think, it's so prevalent. And, it also makes it easier for people to acknowledge it themselves.
I think that's a really good example. Speakers that are willing to come into schools and talk about their experiences. I think that's really helpful to hear that it happens and you're not the only
You
person.
need to find
who's
your
through
way
it.
out of it.
Mhm.
I mean, I like distinctly remember like in middle school, like pre-COVID, all that, like having like those like really like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe these type of situations like happen type of like assemblies. So, I mean, I know that they've happened before. I don't know if they happen as much anymore, but. I
We
remember
actually
that.
have one coming in October. Yeah, he's a huge, Instagram, TikTok, and he talks, it's only for middle school and high school kids. He's coming in October. I'm totally drawing a blank on his name.
Jordan.
Jordan Toma, is coming in. He's also gonna do a parent night, to begin with. So parents have an idea. That's October 2nd and 3rd, or October 3rd and 4th.
Ours is October 2nd.
Okay, 2nd and 3rd. But again, that's a specific that he only speaks to middle and high school. Do some subject matter about kids who have IEPs and, don't let the stigma and different things go with that. So post-COVID, we're kind of getting back into that now. I will say the one thing, is that it's gonna be important, whoever we have that has a parent component as well, because we really need to make sure that the content we're giving kids is appropriate. And I can just speak from our recent Sabres information that went out. We've had a small handful of parents who do not want their kids.
That's what we got. I was just saying, like, we got
Taking
something in the mail
strainer.
where it was, I got it from Shaner. And so I was just asking her, I'm like, we just got something. I didn't
Yeah.
real close.
Sabres, SAE,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
That's it.
social emotional screener
Yep.
that,
But I thought that was a good thing.
is it your grade they start taking the student screener?
Yeah, 'cause I got,
Second on up, okay. And parents have the right to have their child not take the screener, and it's things like, you know, I'm happy, I can be sad, you know, there's a whole list. I said, what we want to do to help get the word out even more and communicate it better is get a Sabres link on our website. Here's what it is, because this will be an every year thing from here on out.
But I like that. I thought that was nice to have, you know, because we have high schoolers, they don't tell us any of that stuff. Like, I'm sure somebody at school said something, but you know, it goes in one ear, one out the other. So I like seeing that, and I knew it was something with mental health and.
Yeah.
So,
So again, it's really important because we had a couple parents who were very, very upset, and you're not gonna, okay, this is, you know, we give you the option to opt out, and, you know, they even said because teachers fill out one as well, to kind of give a balance of how the kid views themselves versus how an adult sees them. And we had a couple, you know, parents say your teachers will not rate my child, and we said, no, they will. This is a part of our screener, and, you know, we use this internally. It's nothing that, you know, but, so we've got to be careful and think about what we bring in, just because it can cause
Educate.
yeah, so educate parents first, then come in.
I think that if it's down to social emotional learning, I think that's the number one audience is gonna be parents, because there are a lot of, I know there are a lot of groups, right, and not to offend anybody, you know, but Moms for Liberty and all these places saying social emotional learning is just garbage, and they're, you know, indoctrinating your kids. I really think that it's gotta be, we have to get the word out there that that's not what we're doing. This is for-
Destigmatize it.
destigmatize it with the parents first, because it's like, you know, I think it was Mary saying, you know, kids now, it's a thing, like, kids talk about going to their therapists and, you know, which is great. It's parents who aren't into it and who have these
it's
weird.
amazing what, especially high school boys share with each other. And I was floored. I don't have girls, so I don't know how girls are, but I don't think girls would have surprised me as much as what my son and his group of 10 friends share with each
Yeah.
other. And some of them have been through some stuff, you know? We have one kid that is basically an agoraphobic and has trouble, spent all 4 years of high school being tutored at home, you know? And those boys included him in every sleep. He got to the point where he would go to certain houses, but who would have thought high school boys would do that? So it's been eye-opening. I agree. I'm amazed by
Yeah,
that.
part of it too is I think they're so afraid that, you know, schools are gonna start digging in and doing this deep therapy. We don't have time.
No.
We got a whole lot to teach. But at the same time, what are the services and supports we can get to kids so they can learn their best when they're with us?
Right.
Whether it be internal services and supports or external
And
services.
it's not this
supports.
nefarious, like, force
Right.
that's coming into our schools. Like, I think it's gotten so far.
But
Yeah.
you might learn different ways to reach kids.
Right.
Well, I know I can't say this because that's kind of a trigger, but I can do it this way, or I can.
I think that our mission of building awareness and normalization, that's around parents. But our mission of the thing that the kids might be lacking, where they already have the awareness, they already have the acceptance of it, is connecting them with the resources. I think they know kinds of things they want, but they may not know where to go get it. So as we're thinking about,
open to it.
yeah, it seems like they're already open to it. They just need to know where can I go? How can I get there? So as we're thinking about communicating those things.
Easy task ahead of us,
Right.
right?
All right. Well, it feels like a manageable task for this year. I think we're at a good pace and
We've got a lot of things already out there, so we're not starting at ground zero.
Yep. All right. Anything else on that before we got 5-ish minutes left here? Next meeting is on the calendar for November the
14th.
14th.
Plan on coming back with what we have on our spreadsheets to that point and
And the goal will be to, I would say, to have complete spreadsheets before we arrive at that meeting for those spreadsheets to be all the way, so all columns filled, all i's dotted and t's crossed and all that good stuff.
Cause then we can talk about the presentation
right.
part of it
That's
and
right.
how we communicate that.
Exactly. Cool. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Yeah.
No, Alex.